Just another brother with another humble question. Just another brother with another humble question.
Welcome to another episode of A Brother with Questions. I am your host, B. Period. I appreciate you for joining me. Before we get started, let me ask you to like and subscribe to the channel and hit that little like button for me. Share it with your friends too, and then comment. Tell me what you're thinking. Man, we're going to dive in. I've been looking for a good video to kind of touch this topic of Project 2025. And so when I saw Fox News interview, the gentleman, can't remember, he's in leadership at the Heritage Foundation. Can't remember his exact title. But I said, you know what, let's dive in. Let's take a look at what he has to say, and then we'll go from there. So we're going to check out the video.
Head Start, they want to send the cost of healthcare and prescription drugs soaring again.
It also cuts benefits for current disabled veterans.
It calls for every abortion, miscarriage, stillbirth, and pregnancy loss from medical treatments such as chemo to be reported to the federal government. I mean, this is pregnancy monitoring designed to turn the federal government into the pregnancy police.
How many times have you heard Project 2025? It's become a hot button topic in the presidential race, even during the debate.
What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad.
So here to talk about that is the leader of Heritage, which has organized this initiative, Kevin Roberts. Kevin, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
Okay, first of all, did Donald Trump, former president, ever endorse this project before it happened? Was he a part of the formation of Project 2025?
No to both, because that's not how we can operate as a public policy organization. We have to be candidate agnostic as a 501c3. And so Mr. Trump is not only telling the truth when he says that, he's also reminding people that we all operate in our lanes. Those of us who are think tank leaders are in one lane, campaigns are in another, political.
So there you've heard the former president acknowledge that he has no idea what's in Project 2025. And while I'll give him some leeway to say it, by now somebody's had to say something to him. So whether or not he's memorized it, he's certainly had heard it by now, right? But as he acknowledged, it's not a part of his agenda. And then here you have Kevin Roberts here, who acknowledges that as a think tank, it would be a violation of the rules of a 501c3 for them to publicly campaign on behalf of any particular candidate, which is another confirmation that President Trump is not or has not endorsed Project 2025. And so in spite of every Democrat, every pundit, every Vice President Harris supporter who claims that this is all his idea, or at least he's going to adopt every single idea in Project 2025, the truth is, it's just not true. But let's let the man explain to you why it's not true.
Parties are in another, and we've been doing this since 1980, and every single one of those election cycles, Brett, since 1980, we have offered policy briefings to every candidate across the political spectrum. This is what we do in think tank world, is create and cultivate these ideas.
For a conservative think tank to have the Republican candidate, distance himself from something like Project 2025, which is 922 pages.
Hold on, I just want to just repeat what he said. Because this, to me, is the key point of all of this. The Heritage Foundation, since 1980, has been putting out obviously it's not Project 2025 because that's named based on the first year of the next president, but they've been putting out a policy agenda every campaign season since 1980. So here begs my question that I have for all of these people that are all hot on Project 2025. If they've been doing this since 1980, how come you didn't have the same message when he ran in 2016? How come you didn't have the same message in 2020? Because the Heritage Foundation had a package put together for 2020. They had a package put together for 2016, but it wasn't sexy to attach him then, but it's sexy now, so we're going to attach him now. No. If you didn't attach him then, you can't attach him now. Because they've been doing this since 1980. What are we talking about?
Pages of possible policy. Isn't that a bad thing?
It's a bad thing if we forget what the reality is, which is that Project 2025 became the target of the radical left. Why did it become a target of the radical left? Because what the radical left can't have an intellectually honest conversation about, they attempt to destroy and to mischaracterize. Literally everything you ran in the intro in that interview of the senators and the representatives is untrue about Project 2025. It's a menu of conservative boilerplate options. I don't think there's a conservative I've met who would say in those 922 pages, I'll agree with everything, but the left can't run on ideas and policies because they're destroying the American dream. And that, by the way, is the motivation for
They
this.
spend a lot of time talking.
Do you hear this? It's their ideas, people. Ideas. That's it. Nobody's saying you got to do this. Nobody's saying that they agree with it all. These are ideas. If you don't like their ideas, where are yours? What are your ideas? Let's talk about yours. And stop talking about theirs. Because at the end of the day, these are just people who are starting conversation. Here's the whole disingenuous thing for me. In DC alone, there are over 40 different think tanks. Some dedicated to liberal, progressive, leaning left organizations. Some nonpartisan. Some call themselves bipartisan. Some call themselves conservative or right. Why are we only talking about the Heritage Foundation? Because just like the Heritage Foundation, there are over 18 think tanks that have put out liberal policies that they think should be adapted. Why aren't we talking about those? Why are we talking about the Heritage Foundation if they're just some random radical organization that is doing something that nobody else is doing? As if they're so unique. Oh, I know. Because they actually got funds to support their ideas. Because they actually can raise money on their ideas. Their ideas actually push the conversation of what we're doing as a country. Their ideas push back against the idea that the government should be expanded. Oh, that's the problem. Because anytime you talk about expanding the government, anytime you talk about offering more free services, oh, you're doing it right. Anytime, you're doing anything other than taking away from us or holding something back from us, you're wrong. I'm gonna let him speak. Go.
Talking about it. Not a lot of time explaining the details of it. It's very detailed. There is one. This is Jared Huffman, Democrat from California. He leads a task force to stop Project 2025. Apparently, they're holding a news conference tomorrow. It says Trump's Project 2025, which we've talked about, is not the connection, plans to resurrect a Victorian-era law, the Comstock Act, to criminalize reproductive care nationwide. We must rectify past injustices and ensure our dark history cannot repeat itself under any future administration. Stop Project 2025. All right, deal specifically with that comment.
Totally untrue. We talk about the history of the Comstock law and the project. And so what the congressman is doing is glomming onto a search function where those words are in there. And then everything else that follows, literally everything else that follows, is untrue. The vice president of the United States is a liar when she says, for example, that Project 2025 wants to implement a nationwide abortion ban. Do we have a difference of opinion with the vice president on abortion policy? Of course, but let's have an intellectually honest conversation. The great thing, Brett, is that all of this targeting of Project 2025 by the radical left has caused people to go to the document, which has, by the way, been out in the public sphere for 18 months. And what I love is to get emails from left of center Americans who say, I disagree with you, but this is a great piece of work that has laid out the cards on the table for us to have a policy conversation.
It's options for a possible President Trump in the second term, but it's not that he's signed on to these specific things.
That is exactly correct. And I want to be really clear. Never before and not now has this project, which sometimes is called Mandate for Leadership and Heritage is History, have we asked any candidate to sign on to it. We can't do endorsements at the Heritage Foundation. We don't seek them. It is a menu of options that if the president and vice president, whether they're Republican or Democrat, by the way, wants to enact certain policies, there's a plan there for them.
Some of the others in here, Project 2025, merit hiring, market-based pay, dismantle Homeland Security Department, leverage State Department confirmation process, CIA accountability through new hires, EPA restructuring and streamlining. Those are bullet points. One of the things people talk about is like a scouring of the bureaucracy to make sure only acolytes who are supportive of, for example, President Trump would be inside the agencies.
That's what the left has done for 50 years. Project 2025 is the corrective to that, where we get competent people who are virtuous to go in. But let me also end with this point on this comment. When you go out and poll the specific policy positions of Project 2025, Brett, most of them are 80-20 issues. And so the left note is focusing on mischaracterizations of those ideas and the name itself. They don't want to have a conversation about the policies themselves, because when the American people learn about them, they realize they support them.
This is Steve Corbin. He writes, Trump's claim he knows nothing about Project 2025 is questionable, to say the least. The Heritage Foundation's website notes Trump fully embraced 64% of its 321 policy reform recommendations during its 2017 to 2021 presidency. Since Trump implemented 64% of Heritage Foundation's manifesto, and knowing he's not a policy wonk, odds are great if elected he will embrace the latest version of Project 2025, lock, stock, and barrel.
We are not presumptuous about any elected official, whether it's through Project 2025 or the daily and hourly work that we do at Heritage, will take our recommendations. We operate in service to them and in service to the American people. We do believe, however, that if you want to restore the American dream, that those policies should be enacted.
Senator J.D. Vance apparently wrote a foreword.
All right, I'm gonna stop there because I think the point has been made. The Heritage Foundation is a think tank that offers policy recommendations for the president, Democrat or Republican. They've been doing this since 1980. They've put one of these out every election year. There is nothing unique about this year's version compared to the 2020 version, the 2016 version, in the sense that there's no more endorsement by the Republican candidate than it was then. And so I question anybody that would say that somehow this year is more unique than the previous years. And even when you argue, as they did, he did 64% of the policies that were in the 2016 version. He implemented 64% of those policies between 2017 and 2021. Okay. Even if you say, well, that's because of that, that means he's going to do 64% of this. Number one, there's no guarantee that that's the case. And then number two, even one of the Heritage Foundation supporters came out and said, well, he would vote for Kamala Harris. So that's that confirmation that Kevin Roberts was talking about. This isn't about voting for Donald Trump. This is about putting out policy. And even one of their supporters is saying, I support Vice President Harris. So if he supports Vice President Harris, that sounds like he would probably like for her to do some of the things that they've suggested in Project 2025. According to her, she would never do anything in Project 25. But he clearly would like her to, because he wants her to be president. But bigger than that, they're not the single only think tank in Washington, D.C. They are one of over 40. And I guarantee you, if you go and start looking down the list of the contributors to some of these progressive and liberal think tanks, I'm sure you're going to find people who were also former members of presidential cabinets, staff, whatever. Because this is Washington, D.C. And if we all can be honest about Washington, D.C., what we have all recognized just by watching over the years is, number one, it seems like once you're there, you don't leave. I'm talking about congressmen, senators. It also seems like once you're there, it only leads to other positions in government, governors, lieutenant governors. And then on top of that, if none of those are your options, it seems like the next logical thing for you to do is to work at a think tank, work for a lobbyer, one of the lobbying companies that lobbies congressmen and senators and presidents, so that ultimately you stay within that machine. So can we stop pretending like there's something so unique about Project 2025? And the fact that former staffers during the Trump campaign work there now, as if that's the only place that they went. As if people who now currently are working in the Biden staff, assuming this whole Vice President Harris thing doesn't work out, and some of these people ain't going to also go work for some of these think tanks, lobbyists in Washington, D.C. The problem is not the Heritage Foundation. The problem is the system. The system is messed up because the system keeps people working in the system. Why? Because those people understand how the system works. And if you understand how it works, you know what you don't do? Rock the boat. Make changes. You give us more of the same. So, can we stop it, people? Can we stop pretending like this is unique? Can we stop pretending like this is the be-all, end-all Bible for conservatives and has been since 1980? Because it hasn't. They've been talking about ending the Education Department of Education since the 80s. They've been having this conversation. And you know what? Nobody's done it. So stop telling me now it's going to happen in 2025. It's not, because it's part of the system. And Donald Trump is not a system breaker. Certainly Vice President Harris is not a system breaker. That's the truth. So let's stop pretending that this is about to change the game. Because it's not. It's another piece of ideas that some of them might get implemented, but the majority of them probably won't, because it doesn't fit the sweet agenda. And as much change as we want to claim Donald Trump does, while he's got some conservative ideas to him, let's stop pretending like this man has been a conservative all his life. Like this man has been a Republican all his life. He is clever at becoming what he needs to be. But I'm not one of these guys that are going to sit here and lie to you and tell you he's been this his entire life. And on that note, I'm B. Period, and I'm out.